Let's start at the beginning, shall we? So my pal Courtney and I decided to swap inspiration boards on Pinterest and make a piece of art that was inspired by the boards that we had created for each other. I am still working on my piece, but I am pleased to report that Courtney has finished hers, and I will leave a link to that in the video description and at the end of this video. After 2 weeks of pondering these boards, I finally had an idea to do a self-portrait in a very different environment for me. So the concept is a self-portrait that was a little bit surreal, as in the weather was conveying my emotions, and I was trying to kind of portray a positive body image towards myself because I've been feeling very down and out about the way I look lately and the way I feel, and I feel like this would just be a good way to kind of get these feelings out and put it on paper and just call it done and be done with those bad feelings and just be able to move on after that. So this is the original concept. And it kind of has like a calm before the storm vibe to it. And I don't know about you, but I have this serenity when it comes to storms. And I feel like once you let out all of your emotions and just get it all out of your system, you feel better. And it kind of, portrays Mother Nature in that sense to where like even the clouds can't hold everything in. And it's not meant to be a depressing piece, but it's meant to kind of, portray the fact that there's a lot going on in my head at the time. And it's just, there's things that are out of my control. And I think that's why I chose to do the clouds and like the calm before the storm, just because, you can't control your emotions somehow, like you can't control the weather. And I just feel like they went really hand in hand with each other. So that was the concept that I came up with. And because I spent so much time taking the photos and working the concept in Procreate, I did just make a line drawing of the concept art that I had fixed. So don't at me. It's my first self-portrait. I wanted it to look like me, so I went with the tracing route for this one. I have a lot of freehand drawing on my channel, and there's more to come, and there's going to be more freehand drawing of portraits, but for this piece I was just tired and I was getting excited to work on it, and I wanted to make sure that it looked like me. So I went with the tracing and transfer method. I also decided to go with a cooler color palette for this piece just because, not that I associate blue with being blue per se, I don't know, I'm really attracted to cool tones, and since it was a self-portrait, it naturally would have been a good call, but there was the night sky and the storm clouds and blue, indigo blue, Payne's gray, a little bit of sepia, some quinacridone violet. Like that color scheme just felt completely right for what I was trying to achieve with this piece. I also decided to use watercolor for this piece, at least for the base, partly because it was a self-portrait and I'm currently in love with watercolor, so that made sense. But also for a little bit of sense of depth with how much I layer. I was very curious to see how dark I could get some areas and how translucent and dimensional I could get the other half, that I was trying to, it was a very experimental piece for me, and it felt really good just to kind of go with my instinct and grab what I wanted to use for this piece. So I decided to go with watercolor for a base and then play it by ear from there. I had a little bit of doubts when it came to the cloud area. For some reason, I find clouds to be extremely hard to paint, as simple as they are. And for some reason, I thought watercolor would be good because it's translucent, and when you see the layers, it would just kind of look more dimensional and more 3D-ish. Though it was definitely a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So because I was unsure of my approach with the cloud section of this piece, I decided to go in and just kind of carve out my face and my hair and put the shadows in where the shadows seemed to belong. Not being completely reliant on my reference, because my concept art was just concept art, and the clouds were a little unnatural looking in it, and the lighting was a little unnatural, so I really had to ponder to myself how I was going to have this come out in the right way. And so I figured I would just start in the face and just kind of carve out the face shapes with the nose and where the shadows were, and definitely defining where I knew I wanted my shadow areas. And it was about this stage in the painting process that I started to realize that my graphite lines were disappearing on me, and I was a little unsure of where I was putting things. And so I did end up having to resort to my reference for where the eyes were, where the nose were, where the lips were. I didn't want to retrace my line art onto this just to give it a little bit more of an organic, unperfect feel. Like, it didn't have to look exactly like the piece that I had showed you in Procreate, but I still wanted it to look like me, and I was a little uneasy after my lines disappeared, but I was confident enough to go in and make the marks anyway. I didn't want to be completely a control freak and just panic because I lost my lines. And I think this is where I started to kind of flounder. Not so much in a sense that I didn't like what I was doing. I was just unsure of what I was doing. And it seemed like all the planning that I had done, I just unconsciously threw it out the window and started painting intuitively. It was very strange. I was listening to a really great audiobook, and I just kind of lost myself. Like, I don't know what happened. I feel like I lost, like, the first 3 hours of working on this. I don't remember. I don't remember what I did. I just kind of like dissolved into the painting somehow. I know that sounds totally dumb, but it was just a very surreal experience. And when I was in wherever I was, that the other place that I went while I was painting, I had started to make marks that I didn't plan on. And I used techniques that I didn't plan on using. It was all, it was almost like an out-of-body experience. Like, it was like I had done all this work and I was listening to a book, and then the beep from my camera, because my card was full, went off, and I looked down and I was very perplexed on what I saw. suddenly I had this huge problem that I had absolutely no idea how to fix. The clouds were not cooperating with me in any sense. And I had to figure out how I was going to fix them, how I was going to make them fluffy, how I was going to make the lightning appear in these clouds. Then the testing began. So I had a conundrum. How on earth were I going to make these clouds look real? How was I going to make it look like I had a crown of clouds and I was sitting up in the air with lightning and rain and stars? How was I going to do this? All the previous planning I had done was a waste. So I decided to try to do some cloud tests with different mediums because I knew I wouldn't be able to do this with watercolor. So I painted a couple backgrounds here and decided to experiment with water drops, possibly for the star areas, different mediums for the clouds. Now, I am very inexperienced with acrylic, so something that I thought was going to be my saving grace ended up being a disaster. I was not happy at all with what I was doing. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to make these things look real. But after a few tests, I finally decided on a plan of action. Whether or not it was actually going to work, I have no idea. So, still playing a guessing game in my mind as to whether or not my plan was going to work, the first thing I had to do was cover up the mess that I called clouds in the first place. So that's what I did. About 5 times. Now, after about 5 layers of indigo blue and a Payne's gray mixture, I was happy that the background was even enough for me to work on. Hopefully. Hopefully it didn't lose the translucent 3D imaging that I had in my mind. Hopefully that would be enough to fix what I had screwed up. Now it was on to something I could focus on with a reference and just kind of paint my way through my face before I had to deal with the clouds again. There is something very dangerous about painting a self-portrait. I can't even put my finger on the word to describe what I felt during this portion of the painting process because I was so angry with myself that my master plan had not worked. And I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out something new that would hopefully help me out. And then I finally get into a comfortable area after the mess that was the clouds to begin with. And I'm put myself in a position to where I have to stare at my face for hours and try not to nitpick myself while I'm doing it. The first hour was okay because it wasn't me that I was painting. I had solidified that in my mind. Like, it's not me. I'm commissioned to do this piece, and this is the reference that I'm using, and just kind of use that to mentally get through it. Because like I said in the beginning of this video, I wasn't really thrilled with my body image or my mental health at that time. So it almost put me in a face your demons kind of situation. And I have to say that I started this piece at the end of January. And I am still not done with it yet. There has been so many WTF moments with this piece that I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if at the end of this I'm going to feel better or worse. And suddenly this video got a little sad, but it's not meant to be that. It's just, I'm a very honest person and I feel things very deeply. And so, because I was tired of staring at my face, I worked on the hair for quite a while because I just zoomed in on the hair and I was just going to focus on that because that is something that I like about myself. I like my hair. So I figured I would just focus on that for just a little while before I went back to my face. And it's not so much as I don't like my face, but when you're constantly staring at something and it's you and not someone else, we tend to pick out our flaws. So to clarify, the concept for this piece was to portray a positive body image on myself and to look at myself a little bit better and just kind of raise my self-worth. And then it just all kind of went sideways. I stopped working on this for, I want to say, about 3 weeks. I don't know if it was the challenge of doing my first portrait or if it was something I just couldn't mentally handle. Like, I couldn't simplify what I was trying to do art-wise. Instead of just painting a picture, it became a looking in the mirror, trying to fix things that were out of my control. And I don't mean that so much physically. I mean it in a sense to where you're kind of taking a inventory of yourself and really trying to move past obstacles that have been holding you back. I feel like I've been holding on to a lot of anger since last October when my plans for Inktober just kind of fell through my fingers. And I had it all planned out and things happened and things keep happening. It just seems like currently it's a when it rains it pours kind of situation in my life. And all of those things I can't control. And, you know, part of me was very much in control emotionally, like almost to the point to where I made myself numb. And in working on this piece, it was like the floodgates opened up. And I was really really trying to work through things that I didn't even know needed to be worked through. So I picked it up again after those 3 weeks in giving myself a break, and I had other projects that I was working on, and I had other videos to upload. And then I came back to this one finally ready to kind of give myself that self-evaluation and figure out what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, that kind of thing. You know, like there was a lot of in my head talks, you know, and then we had, you know, coronavirus and the quarantine, and we were all stuck here at home, and it seemed like the only time that I had with myself and my thoughts was 3 o'clock in the morning, an hour before I went to bed, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my art, what I wanted to do with my life. And the one thing I discovered is that I didn't want any outside influences anymore. I tried to do some trending things and be cool and fit in with the in crowd. And one thing I truly discovered about myself is that I don't typically like trends. I think the only trend that I like was Inktober. And you know, that's just a coincidence, because I'm typically not a trendy person. I only trend things that I like. I'm not going to trend it just to trend it because it's a trend. And I got lost in that tunnel for a minute, and, you know, listening to YouTube gurus and all this information about how to grow on Instagram, how to grow on YouTube, and it just became very noisy. And it was hard to be creative for a while. You know, I came into this piece just with the idea to just paint a picture and not go on an emotional roller coaster ride of self-discovery. And it's been hard, that's for sure, because obviously I'm not done yet. But it's been very therapeutic in a sense. And like all things, they take a lot of time. And, you know, therapy itself, like if you go see a therapist, I mean, you go more than once. So I think if you are in a sense to where you're feeling a little bit lost, maybe trying to paint a self-portrait might be a good idea for you. You definitely learn a lot about yourself, or I did anyway. I don't know if I'm just a weirdo freak, but yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. It's definitely hard though. I don't recommend it unless you're ready to take the journey, because it's definitely a ride, that's for sure. A lot of ups and downs. I know at this point I was pretty happy with the progress that I had made, and happy with the color palette, happy with the way things were blending, happy with the way I was able to paint the face and get the composition correctly, and being indecisive on whether or not I was going to add my necklace in, because I'm not sure at this point if it's going to take away from the piece and draw your eye away from the focal point. So I decided to put that on the back burner until I could make a better decision. The hair was also one of those things that I was kind of kind of painting around where I thought the clouds were not going to be, because I didn't want to make more work for myself in trying to create those on top of such a dark tone. So it was kind of like a battle of wits. I was very much trying to render and then not render too much in certain areas because I wasn't sure how my new backup plan for the clouds was going to pan out. It's very unnerving, and as I said in a little while ago, I did lose my lines, and the more that I looked at the reference photo and then looked at my piece, I kind of realized that I kind of went a little off there. Not so much as to where it made it a bad piece, but I was kind of very confused as to how I got off track. Some of the pieces of hair were just kind of not where the lines were, and then I lost the lines, and then I looked at the picture and then looked back at my piece, and I had put the hair in the wrong spot, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I gonna do about this? And then I had to tell myself, well, it's just hair, and as long as it looks like hair, nobody's gonna notice. So after I got off my back about that, things started to kind of perk up a little bit. I don't know if it's something that comes along with doing a self-portrait, is trying to have a little bit of the perfectionism thrown in, just because you want to see yourself in the best light, in a sense. I'm not quite sure, but you know what, while we're talking about it, let me know in the comments if you have ever done a self-portrait, and if I am in fact the only weirdo that went on an emotional roller coaster while painting said self-portrait, because I am very, very curious now. Also, if you did do a self-portrait, I would love to see it. If you wouldn't mind tagging me on Instagram or Facebook, my handle is @Kellipaints, or, you know, emailing me or messaging me or direct messaging me your self-portraits. I would love to see them, and I'd be happy to show them in part 2 or part 3 of this self-portrait journey that we're on. If you guys would like me to do that, definitely message me them. And I'm very curious to see if any of you took a surreal kind of take to your self-portrait, or if you just did a straight realism piece, or if you went abstract or whatever. I think I'm very suddenly fascinated by self-portraits and what people associate with themselves when they decide to do a self-portrait. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and send them to me. The only place I will show them is in a YouTube video. You will get credit in the video description if that is something you want to do. So if that is something you want to do, make sure you let me know that in the comments as well. So here goes nothing. Here goes my backup plan on your screen right now. I decide to take a white charcoal pencil and kind of try to outline loosely where I want these clouds to be, so I'm not wasting time painting hair sections that are technically in the clouds and vice versa. I'm also going to be trying to mark out where I would like the cloud to look like it's glowing a little bit from lightning, in a sense. And I'm very curious as to what you guys think, how you think I'm going to be fixing these clouds. So while you're hanging out in the comments, dare to venture a guess as to what you think I'm going to do with this cloud situation, because I'm very curious to know. Apparently I'm very curious about everything today, but that's okay. P.S. I hope you guys liked this format of video. I recently discovered that I enjoy watching and listening to long form videos while I'm doing my art and other things around the house and outside and things like that. So hopefully this was something that you enjoyed and it had a little bit of a storytelling effect behind it, because I really want to get better at storytelling and writing and things that can go along with art. All things creative, really. I'm just so wanting to bust out of the rut that I've been in and just switch things up. So I would absolutely love your feedback, and I want to personally say thank you to the people that are constantly in the comments of my videos. You guys are some of my greatest supporters, and it just means so much to me knowing that I'm not just putting this out there into the void and somebody is enjoying my content. And not only that, but I feel like some of us have become really good friends, and I'm very grateful, very grateful to have you here in this community with us and me. And you guys are just great. Whenever I'm not in the mood to make a YouTube video, I think of you guys, and I always want to up my game and make things cooler for you and more exciting. So thank you so much for your support, your kind words, and just hanging with me and having the same interests as me, and honestly pushing me to experiment. And it's all been so fun and so nice, and I never thought that I would be that kind of person that would be on a YouTube platform doing anything, because I am typically so shy and I'm so introverted, and I feel like we all connect very well, and it's a very nice community in the comments, and I absolutely adore you guys, and I cannot thank you enough for your support, because sometimes you guys are the only reasons why I put out videos. Sometimes I forget why I started this, and then I have a bad day, and then one of you just pops in the comments and just has nothing but nice things to say, and it's just absolutely amazing, and it means the world to me. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in part 2.